Do you ever wish your husband would communicate with your kids the right way so that there's no conflict and everybody's happy? Maybe you've tried to guide him, but it's just not really working. If you'd like to have more influence over how your husband and your kids interact, well, my guest today is sharing some wisdom bombs that you won't want to miss. I'm Laura Doyle, New York Times bestselling author, and I was the perfect wife. But then I got married. This is the Empowered Wife Podcast. My guest Juveriya's marriage had lost its spark. She found it difficult to respect her husband, and her marriage felt exhausting. But Juveriya made a discovery, and now she is happier, and they are back to laughing a lot and feeling connected again. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Juveriya, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, and thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to hear your whole story.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me. This is just beyond I don't know what to say. I'm just so grateful to you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I, I can't wait to hear the entire thing. Let's start in the bad old days. What was going on?
So I want to start off with sharing with you the how my husband and I met. So my husband and I saw each other in person for the first time on our wedding day. And we were engaged for 2 years prior to that. So it was an arranged marriage. And my husband was born in India, but raised here in the US. And I was born and raised in India. Hence, it was an arranged marriage. And prior to getting engaged to him, I didn't even know that he existed. But my heart was just found that contentment. And I felt that this is right. And I was excited. I felt this is it. And in the 2 years of our engagement period, we did speak over the phone once a week. We exchanged letters, cards, photos of each other through mail, the old way. And the technology wasn't there with the whole cell phone and video calling. So we didn't have any of that. But in that 2 years, we did fall in love. And, we just felt very connected. And now fast forward, we get married back in 95. And it takes me about a year to come to the US. And I move here, leaving all my family behind. I don't have anyone here, but
Mm.
I join his wonderful family. He has a large family here with a lot of uncles, aunts, cousins, and a really beautiful family. And I really got to um, bond with his mom and his two sisters, who really just embraced me right off the bat. And I did the same, and we had a beautiful relationship. And but I was new, it was a cultural shock. I had to learn. I had to learn how to drive. I had to learn a lot of things that were just different, especially back then. In India, it wasn't as advanced and where we lived and stuff. But the 2 years of engagement was because I wanted to finish my undergrad. And at the time when we got engaged, he thought we were gonna get married right away. But anyways, so now I'm here, and one of the things that and we had our first child within the first year of me coming here.
Mm.
And that was exciting. And his mom was with us, and she was a huge support system for us. It's God's will that she, passed away 4 years after I moved here. So we did feel a big loss. We both felt that loss. And now, I was a born Muslim and raised in India, so I knew what respect looked like. and and I was doing everything to be that respectful wife, respectful person. I was really well liked in his family. And now, fast forward, and now we're like in 15 years into our marriage, and by now we had three daughters, and they're all six years apart. And um, So we both decided that it was my idea initially, but we both decided that it's best that I quit working. And which I had started working around the same time my oldest daughter was born. So like I said, there was a lot of new stuff that I had to just adapt and acclimate to. So now after our third child, we decided that I should just, quit my job and stay at home, which made sense to both of us. Why two people be so stressed out, taking care of everything, going to work, managing the kids. And we had a team. He used to help me out at home. We had like obviously, normal stuff that happens between couples, but nothing big deal. Uh, and then now when I stopped working, and I still remember the first summer, that was back in 2010, and we had just moved into our new home, so another new change. And I just remember the first summer, I felt I'm going crazy because I have a new toddler, then I have around a 7-year-old daughter, and I have a 13-year-old daughter. And there's no routine to my life. I don't have work to go, they don't have school to go, and I'm just trying
Oh,
to manage them and just trying to keep up the house clean, cooking, doing everything that I'm like, this is something I have to do. Now I'm at home. I can't even expect him to help me because that's the decision. Like I said, it was originally my decision. And I just felt uh, I'm not just doing enough. I'm not being competent. I'm just, but then I did practice some of the skills, back then. Of course, not as a science, the way you have made it, which is so brilliant. Anyways, I used to, receive him with a happy smile, and I used to get dressed and look pretty, and have the house clean because I'm like, we liked it. But I also kind of had this thing that if he helps me out, then it's a reflection that I'm not a competent person.
oh, yeah.
And during the weekends, I didn't mind so much him helping me. But on the weekdays, I'm like, no, you can't help me. And I used to control that part. And when he tried to help me, I'm like, no, don't help me. I've told you not to help me. And I would just almost get a little upset around him helping me because it was my reflection of me that I'm not going to be a good wife, right?
You weren't doing enough.
I
And
was
it's,
gonna, yeah. And he's already going out to work and it's stressful. And I've been in the workforce, so I know it can be stressful. So I was trying to be such a understanding wife, right? And and all of that was going on. And I was, I think I was just doing a lot, right? And I thought I had to do all of that. And I wanted to please him. I wanted him to be happy with me. And I wanted to raise the kids. I just didn't want to burden him with things. And then somewhere along the line, it's also like that mom guilt showed up, and I felt I'm not doing enough as a mom. And this workshop came around. I heard about a workshop, a parenting workshop, and I'm like, I want to go take, I want, and like learning was always a thing for me. I wanted to learn. So I'm like, okay. So I told my husband I want to go and do this workshop, and he said, yeah, go for it. So and it was a 3-day workshop. I go for it, and I come back, and now I'm like, I feel so empowered as a mom, as a parent. I'm like, now I want to teach the world about it, and especially have to start off with my husband, obviously.
absolutely. He
Because
didn't go to the workshop. So
exactly, he
how
didn't
does
go to
he
the
know?
workshop. Yeah. And the things that I learned in the workshop was kind of not something how I was fully raised or he was raised, or things that we normally don't do in an Indian families or even Muslim families. So it was just different, but it seemed very in line with Islam. I'm like, because, so I'm like, okay, this is right. This is the right thing to do. But now I wanted to teach him. I wanted him to learn. I'm like, this is how it's supposed to be done. And I was trying to tell and mark the pages in the books. I'm like this to making it easy for him to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was interested, but not as invested that the way I am. And I would start seeing the things, how what he's not doing right,
That's right.
according to the books, and I'm trying to do everything. And then now fast forward, this went on for, for years. But now we also have cell phones, and now we also have the podcast and videos. And this parent thing was just a big thing. I kept wanting to just find videos and find ways for him to, and I felt exhausted. I felt like I'm doing so much, and like, only if he just sees the way I'm seeing this whole parenting thing. And when the kids, and obviously every household has issues with children and everything, and I always wanted to be the one to find the right way of doing it. And when he would suggest his ways, I'm like, okay, yeah, but anyways. And I know it sounds really almost embarrassing, but we would be eating at the dining table, and I would try to control how he's going to respond to the kids. So I would just like kind of, touch his feet under the table, and just to make sure he's going to say the right thing. Or if he didn't say the right thing, or if he said something that could be offensive to the kids, I would just like nudge him some more. I'm like, or across the room, I would just kind of give him a look. It's like, remember, like trying to remind him. Or behind the doors, I would just kind of tell him, hey, and I'm being very nice, right? And I'm like, hey, maybe that's not the way you should have talked. Or this is, the book talks about these all these parenting things talk about this. And he would say, yeah, no, you're right, you're right, why don't you just remind me, and he would tell me to remind him, and I'm like, okay, this is good, like he wants me to remind him. Anyways, I would do all those things, and really trying to be helpful, and just keeping up with all the stuff, trying to manage and be that independent person. I'm like, okay, and this is what he wanted. And because I knew this is what he wanted, like an independent woman.
Right.
Anyways, now fast forward some more. And this whole the parenting thing, and just finding a way to bring this awareness in my community. Like, okay, I need to do something in that space. And I'm still not working. And this was around maybe 2017, 2018. I just had this desire that I want to go back to school. I want to get a master's, and maybe, get a degree in MFT. And because I want to change the family dynamics everywhere, because I started to see how many people are doing the wrong parenting. And I always find a subtle way of talking about it, because that was my passion, right? And but at the same time, also feeling like I'm a failure as a mom, and it's because he's not being on board with me, right?
Mm.
Something is missing still. And so then I decided to go back to school, and he said, go for it, I'll support you, whatever you want to do, right? So I took some classes in community college, and again, the whole uh, the child development and all of that. And now I started to analyze my own life and all the places I may have gone wrong, right? Because now it's like I'm child development from the beginning. I'm like, I wish I had knowledge of this right when my kids were born and I was raising them. And now, fast forward, 2019 comes around, and I'm ready to apply to a master's school in September to start maybe joining the program in 2020. And then 2019, I am diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
And I'm like still not giving up on the idea that I'm going to, I'm like, no, this is something my dream, and I'm going to do it. But there were some complications with the treatments and stuff. And there was one point that I had to be hospitalized for in that process.
Mm.
And just seeing my husband juggle the home and the kids while I was in the hospital. And I just felt that, you know what? I don't want to complicate my life going back to school at this point. And even if I do part time, it's going to be like 3.5 years. It's just, this is something I don't want to do it. And I don't want to burden him like that. And when I shared that with him, that, hey, you know what? I dropped that idea. He said, are you sure you were so on board with it? He said, yeah. I said, I just don't feel like it's the right thing for us right now. As we're getting older, we should be getting, not as like reduce its stress, basically, right? And I could sense their sense of relief on him. He
Mm.
was really just supporting me, even though he didn't think it was the right thing.
Oh,
That was really sweet and like heartwarming for me that,
yeah.
wow, you were willing to do all of that and, really support me through that. But then that was then 2020, as we know, the pandemic happened. And that was 2020 was a great year actually in our household. And end of 2020, the last day of 2020, we were playing pickleball and I broke my foot. I had a little fracture in my foot. And then so starting 2021, it was started off with me not able to do much, right? And then that transferred into like my back. They said there is a little something in my back, like a little fracture in my back. And now I am bedridden for a couple of months.
Mm.
And all of this is happening. And then middle of 2020, my husband and my daughter gets COVID and it was like the bad COVID. And since I'm still like recovering, I'm still like suppose cancer patient, right? I'm still on
Yeah.
medications.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-laws who are in the medical field, they're like, oh no, you can't stay with, in the
No,
house.
it's
And they're
scary.
like, they helped me. I went and stayed with my aunt. Anyways, all of this is happening, and I'm also feeling more and more incompetent about myself now that I have more health issues too, and on top of everything. Anyways, so that was 2020, and then 2020, oh no, 2021. And, you talk about self care, right? And as it is, I had never really paid attention to self care because I had to run the family. I had so much. I don't have time for any, even though I was stay at home mom, I just don't have time because I never looked into prioritizing that. And but these feelings were there, but I wouldn't share with anyone about him because I always believed that, I shouldn't share things about him to people because that's not a good thing. It's disrespectful. And I didn't want anyone to have a bad opinion of him, the things that I had, some of the things I was seeing. Except for one or two times I would share some things with some very close friends, but not much. But one of the people that I really did share more was actually his sister. And the reason I thought that's a safe thing to do is because she's older than both of us, almost like a mom figure. And she's his sister, which means she's not going to have a bad opinion of him.
Oh.
So I'm covered. And may God bless her. She's always been my support, and try to be that good balance between both of us. And I give her a lot of credit for our good marriage for the time frame, we did have because she just was there. But I also feel bad that now that I look back, I burdened her with that. Anyways, so now we're continuing but at this time I think I'm starting to feel more and more resentful and feeling like I've been the martyr and I've been the reason we have such a good marriage. And what I call is around this time is all those seeds, the destructive seeds that I was sowing over the years started to sprout, which I didn't know that I was really sowing those seeds. I
Mm-mm.
was just, I'm so helpful. I'm doing everything, but I'm not being appreciated. I'm not being valued enough. And I just had all those things and I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, out of desperation, I was also telling him that, hey, I'm just not happy, you know?
Mhm.
And the whole that the five love languages. So, and we had read earlier on in our marriage, and his love language to receive was, and to give actually, is act of service. And mine to receive was always, words of affirmation. And in my mind, I'm giving you your love language with the acts of service. I'm doing so much, but I'm not receiving my love language. You're not complimenting me enough. You're not appreciating me enough. It's not that he didn't do it, but I just needed more. It
Yeah.
just was not enough. The how much I wanted, I needed.
Yeah.
And I would tell him that. And because he had told me, hey, whatever you need to just tell me because, man, just they don't just always know what the women want, so you're going to have to just tell me. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing that too. I'm telling him. And in this desperation, I also took him for marriage counseling, which was almost a little embarrassing for him. Like we've been married, what at this point, 26, 27 years, So I'm like, no, people do it. Let's go. And he did come with me. And I felt really heard through in those sessions. I felt very validated. Um, and I think he also felt attacked.
Oh,
uh, because now that was a female therapist. And I think later on I found out that she didn't have a good marriage. She's coming from a broken marriage. Um, but anyways, thankfully, because we had some insurance glitches, we only lasted for 4 sessions of that. But every time after every session, we would actually have more arguments or just not feel good about ourselves. And at one point, I had found out about another like a marriage retreat, and that seemed really good. And I know it is a really good retreat. And I told him, I said, I know I really want to go to that. It was a 2-day retreat, and he said, okay. But it just seemed like complicated to manage, what are we going to with our youngest daughter because she's still dependent on us. Somehow it didn't happen, and it didn't seem like he's really interested.
hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I guess this is it then. And I was just tired of just keep pursuing and being the one to try so hard. And I thought, you know what? It's just best that I just go back to being my old self, which just being just submissive and just not have desires. And also another thing is over the years, I just felt that I want to be a good wife, which means I don't want to expect a lot, monetary things, because I felt if I expect a lot of in a monetary things, that makes me more materialistic.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just didn't feel right.
Right. Yeah.
And I would stop him from wanting to get me things. And this is still within our 25 years of marriage, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. He had surprised me with a car, and a Mercedes car, a bow on it, a big bow,
Oh.
and he had showed up. This is in our old home, and he had showed up to the door, and he had arranged it with one of his friends to arrange the whole thing because anyways, he came and he asked me to come out, and I was not happy. And I had forgotten the story until a few years ago when he was sharing it with another couple, and he said, guess what my wife did? She just got upset at me and ran back inside the house. And he's like, it was so embarrassing for me in front of my friend. And then later on, I think the reason was I knew he always wanted a Mercedes. And we're still, starting off, we're settling. And that's one was one of the big purchases. And I felt like, how can I take it? It has to be for you. And again, I'm thinking I'm such a good wife because I'm letting him have the good thing and something he always wanted.
So,
Anyways, and
so
that,
yeah. being a good wife means you sacrifice,
Yes.
you suck it up, you
Yes.
just deny your own desires
Yes.
and do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
it's, that's the definition, right?
That's the definition. Yes. Totally get it. Yeah.
So, and I remember back then, so then that became his car. And, so anyways, now coming to this phase of me like having a full-blown resentment. And at this point, I wasn't always hiding it. I was showing it to him, right? And then even after the failed attempts with counseling and all of that, I thought, okay, I think it's just I shouldn't want anything. I shouldn't
Mm.
want expect anything from him. And I think I just need to do more, right?
Yeah.
And I had met my extraordinary friend back in 2019, just before my cancer diagnosis. Anyways, fast forward, she gets married in end of 2020, and then she started to having some issues, and we're close, but not super close. We got really close before her second anniversary, I think. So now we're in 22, and she was at a verge of getting a divorce. But then I think somewhere in the process, she had found your book because she was a reader, and she found a book and she started to practice the skills and turned her marriage around. And we were just really close at this time. And she would share things with me. And I knew the hardship she was going through, the pain she was going through. And to see all of that transform, I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm really happy for her. But since she used to share things about her marriage, I just felt comfortable that maybe I could also just share. And I guess not recognizing, not realizing I'm sharing, but I started to share with her some of my unhappiness. And I started to share with her that how I have kind of given up on trying to make it happen. And it's not like we would fight. It's not like we would scream at each other. And our kids didn't really even know that we're having anything happening in our marriage because the two older daughters, were older, independent. Our youngest daughter was still with us, and she's still with us. She's almost 15. And in the family, we had this kind of like a reputation about, oh, they're such a good couple, right? They're so happy and they're such a good home, and how well they get along and how well they raise their kids. So I had to keep up with that image as well
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
right?
You have
And
status in the
I have a
family.
status, and of
Yeah.
course, and I don't want to complain about him because that's not respectful.
Right.
So, but then of course, I would started to, like I said, started complaining to this special friend of mine. And then she would say, hey, why don't you, read Laura's book? She has a really good book, Empowered Wife, and it's really well laid out. Why don't you do that? I'm like, yeah, you're right. But I don't think it's in my head, I'm like, God, it's not for me because my marriage is not in crisis.
Right. Right.
We never ever talked about divorce. That was far from, we would never even think about it. But to be honest, I want to just share one thing. I never thought of divorce. He never thought of divorce. But I just thought maybe I'm not good enough for him. Maybe he should have had someone else as his wife. I know that makes me feel really emotional because all along we knew we are the ones for each other. But in that phase, I felt that maybe I'm not the right one for him. But um, it was just really painful. It was just painful that I was losing that spark because I cherished it so much. Honestly, it was more painful than me going through all my cancer journey, the treatment, because
Wow.
it's just that emotional pain. And I've tried so hard. to have to build this, right? And people looked up to us. Like my friend, she's a lot younger than me, and she had looked up to us like we're such a good couple. But anyways, so then when I started to share things with her, she would say, "Hey, why don't you read the book?" So I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Since you're telling me, I'll do that." And I made a promise to her and that I will do it. And she said, that would be so great. Then we can start talking about it because she's like, I too need support in it because I don't know anyone else who is practicing the skills, and especially because in our Muslim community, and we were really close, we would talk about our religion thing, and we love our faith, both of us. Anyways, so I started to read and I was blown away. Actually, sorry, I started read, but I was not doing a good job reading because I don't have time, remember? I have
Yeah.
to do
You're
so much.
busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a
So
lot to
then,
do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So then she said, why don't it's on Audible? Why don't you just start listening to She's like doing everything she can for me to start
Like,
reading
okay.
and listening somehow. And so then I said, okay, that's a great idea. I got the book, The Empowered Wife, on Audible, and I started to listen. I was blown away with the definition you have for respect. I'm like, really? I'm like so respectful, you know? But I'm like, but I was intrigued, but it like made sense. At the same time, it made sense. I didn't doubt anything you were saying. It made sense. But I'm still in middle, listening to chapters. And then I would tell her, hey, but you know what? It doesn't seem fair that why do I have to do all of it?
Yeah.
Right. So she
Yeah.
said, just wait, just continue to listen. You'll find more as you go along. I'm like, okay, okay. So I really give a lot of credit to her really holding me accountable for me to
Hmm.
continue to read. And once I finished reading, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you were right. And now I had this thing, I'm like, I have to tell everyone about it. I started to share with my friends and my cousins and the family. But nobody seemed as excited as I was. When anything I find new, I get really excited. It's like, I have to share it with the world. I have
Yeah.
to just do that. But my friend and I, we just kept talking. All our conversations was just about the book and about this, about do you see, oh my gosh, this is what I did today. And I'm like, oh yeah. And, finding like the wins, but I'm still at a very initial stages of the skills, right? And I started off with seeing my disrespectful behavior defined by you. And I started to duct tape. I'm like, started to not call him out on things. Oh, one thing I forgot. So this whole cancer journey and me finding holistic way of treating it too. Um, I'm like, and I really went 180 degrees on the way I ate and my healthy lifestyle and what I ate and everything. And that was another thing I started to control my husband and my daughters. My
You
oldest
don't
daughter
want,
has always been on board with healthy eating. She's the one who would teach us about things. So now the two of us started to like tell everyone in the house. It's like, like, oh my gosh, you're going to be eating ice cream, you're eating dairy, your sugar is not good. And because I had learned so much about sugar, right? And with the cancer doesn't, love sugar, all of that. So that was another thing. So now I had the parenting thing going and now the healthy eating going. And I'm like, it's my responsibility because I'm the one who's managing the household. Sorry, I just forgot that. So I had to mention it. Oh, so at this point, after I started to listen to your book and finished listening, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell anyone about the food because, I'm not going to do that, right? Self-care is still not in the picture yet.
okay.
Um, and so this is in middle of 2023. And before I started to like really complain to Momina, so early part of 2023, I started to feel this. This is the time I had not heard about you or your book yet. I shouldn't say I had heard about you, but not started reading your book. But now I thought, because I had accepted this is my marriage, but then I also thought that, maybe one of the reasons my husband is probably not so happy with me is because I'm not working anymore. I'm not bringing any money, even though that was long gone, right? It's been a long time. And he has never brought it up. And he's always been like wanting to buy me things, get me things, or anything. But, anyways, in my head, oh, it's probably because I'm
Yeah.
not bringing in money. I'm not competent. And these are all the insecurities I had about me, but I was reflecting on him.
Yeah.
And so I had this desire that I want to do something. I want to go back, to workforce. But I really did not have interest in my field, which was in IT. I loved at the time I did it, but now because now this whole parenting thing and this psychology, and I'm like, really want to do something in this space. So it just so happened that around the time I was listening to your book, and I was just really loved it. Um, I just expressed a desire to one of my cousins, actually his cousin, that, I really want to do something. I want to make money, you know. And she said, "Do you want to go back to your, your field because you already have some experience?" I said, "I don't know. I thought about it, but it just doesn't seem that exciting. My heart's not in it." And I'm like, I don't have the energy to go back to school to get
Mhm.
the 3-year degree. I'm over it. So the cousin said, "Why don't you look into coaching? Because you have a knack, because I would be good at talking to my cousins
Yeah.
and younger people." And she said, "Why don't you look into that?" I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, I think that would be a good fit for you." I said, "Okay." So then I started to researching coaching schools. And then I told my special friend that, "Hey, guess what? I think I'm going to start looking into coaching schools." So she said, "Why don't you look at Laura's coaching school? Because she has a coaching." She said, "She does?" "Yeah, she does." I'm like, "Okay." I got on, I listened to your hour and a half, whatever your pieces on the coaching schools, and I was sold. I'm like, "This is it." No, I'm like, "This is it. I want this so badly." I'm like, but I'm like, I looked at the cost. I'm like, "Okay, this is a lot. I don't think I can talk to him about it because my husband is just going to say no, because it's just too much. We have a college going daughter, another daughter going to be getting in college, and all these expenses." And I was always very conscientious about, not being a burden, right?
Yeah.
And
And
I've
plus,
always
you're not making money. So how
yeah,
could you
exactly.
even?
And also I already felt that I'm already somewhat of a burden with all the health issues I've gone through and had to take all this help. And even that, I tried to be as independent as possible. And because that's what a good person does,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
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 So, anyways, when I looked at the coaching school, I was just so in love with it. And I'm like, I just kept thinking about it and kept talking to my friend how much I want to do it. That desire was just there. And I scheduled a call with Coach Kathy, and I loved it. And I haven't told my husband about it yet. I told him that I'm looking into coaching schools because I want to do that. And then I go to him with this wanting to ask, wanting to tell him, "Hey, I really want to join Laura's coaching school." He doesn't know much about you right now. And at the time, and my energy was very nervous, scared. I didn't want to hear no for an answer, but I was almost convinced that he's going to say no. So I'm already getting very defensive inside me. But but Coach Kathy had kind of told me how I should approach, right? How I should bring it up. So I'm like, okay, I can't complain. I have to just share and then leave it. And I did. And this was back 23 in around June. And Coach Kathy had said, oh, we still have openings in our July cohort. And our wedding anniversary is in July. So I started dreaming, wouldn't that be so cool if I could just start this coaching school and at the same time it's our anniversary, right? And then when I approached him around end of June, he said, "Oh, it just doesn't make sense. It's just too expensive. What are you going to do after that? Neither one of us know how to start a business, and it just doesn't seem right." I was heartbroken,
Oh, definitely crushed.
crushed.
Because he
And
has all these logical reasons that it doesn't.
yeah, and that was always one of the things I forgot to mention. He was always very logical, and I was more emotional, you know? But according to Coach Kathy, I should not try to convince him. I'm supposed to just leave it, which is like, okay, I'm gonna just listen because I'm a good student.
But it
And
sounds stupid though, right?
it
Doesn't
did,
it?
it
It's
did. But I'm like,
frustrating.
okay, but I'm like, old ways didn't work anyway. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna
Okay. All right.
listen,
Well, this isn't
right?
working either, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Anyway,
right.
so I left and then I cried. I cried so much. And I took it to my friend and we both were disappointed. She was disappointed, like, oh my gosh, I was hoping that you would join this school because I know that's all we're talking about it. And then I thought, I'm just going to give up on that. I'm going to give up on going to this school, this coaching school. I started to looking at other coaching schools which were a lot cheaper. But once I had tasted everything, I had read everything about your coaching school, none of them like looked enticing to me. I'm like, okay, just give up. Or for now, I'm just gonna, in other words, I had relinquished control over it without recognizing it. I had just stopped, right? And then just kind of starting like just focusing on whatever skills I could find from the book and just starting to do that. Now, fast forward, now we're in October of 23, and I actually went to visit my this special friend at her place, which is a different state, which I had expressed a desire to my husband that I want to go see her because she was pregnant at the time. And I went to see her and I came back filled up, a great self-care. And I'm here and my husband and I are talking in the kitchen. I still remember my daughter was in the school and I don't know what happened to me, but this desire of joining your school came up again. But I think it was from a different place at this time. I was really vulnerable and I didn't have any expectations because I had kind of given up on that, right? And I just got really emotional. And I felt like, and I was telling him, I'm like, I really want to do this. I just really want to do this for me. And he was hearing, and I was kind of not giving him explanation, but giving him reasons of why I want it. Not why he should do it, but why I want it. And he heard, and he said, if you want it so badly, why don't you just do it? This would be my gift to you for your 50th birthday. My 50th
Oh,
birthday was coming up in November. I'm like, what? Really? I just started to cry out of happiness. I'm like, really? I can do that? He said, yeah. And he gave me a hug. And it was the time I had to go pick up my daughter. And I'm like, okay, okay. So, and I left to go pick up my daughter. And on my drive, I called my friend. I'm like, can you believe it? Can you believe it? He said, yes. He said, I can join. I can join Laura Doyle's coaching school. And she was super excited. She's like, oh my gosh, you're going to become a coach? Then I can have all the tips from you, you know, I'll have the support from you. And I'm like, yes, you know. Anyways, we both just really enjoyed this big win of mine. And believe it or not, what happened was uh, both my husband and I are very attached to our faith. And we have a special prayer that we do anytime we have to make a big decision. So
Ah,
we did the special prayer, and I had already done that before, a long time back. I had already done that. And anyways, so next day of him saying yes to this, my friend sends me a video of you being interviewed on the Dean Show. I don't know if you remember that.
I do very well. Very well. He
Okay.
is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And, he's a Muslim, the one who's
Yes.
interviewing, right?
Yes.
So that one was almost like a sign that I'm doing the right thing.
Ah,
And I have to also mention that when I started to listen to the book and the skills, everything made so much sense that it was in completely in alignment with Islam.
wow.
It just it seemed so real, you know? And so when this video came along, when my friend gave me this video, I shared it with my husband, and we both felt at peace. Both our hearts felt at ease. Even though I was already sold months ago, I was happy that he also felt really comfortable. It made sense to him.
Confirmation from,
Confirmation. Yeah.
yes.
And I listened to the whole video and I was just so happy about it. And anyways, and later on, I think he also heard parts of it because I wanted him to. And and he was pretty impressed. He really was pretty impressed about it. And then I started coach training in October, right? And the first thing we talk about first week is self-care. I'm like, oh God, this is the worst. I'm like, self-care. I don't have time for self-care. But now being a student, I had to do everything I had to do. But what really shifted for me was the attitude and the intention behind the self-care. It's not like a typical self-care that, oh, go have massages, go have this, because all along, or do this, and you have to do something big to feel that self-care, right? And that was a huge thing for me. It's like just really just changing the mindset around self-care. It was just that. And because I love going to farmers market, but I used to do it as a chore, but now I started to look at as a self-care.
Get
And I
to.
was really able to get the benefits of that self-care. I started to see it differently. It started to make a difference for me. And then, the other skills and I want to share this because in December, end of December of 23, that's when we were on our skill of gratitude, in the class, in the
Right.
coach training. And I want to say that really saved me because back in my old way of thinking, when I used to think that I have to do all of this to really please my husband, right? Because we both like clean home, organized home, but I had kind of like you know, kind of given up, not given up, but accepted that I'm not going to have always perfect home, right?
Sure.
But he liked clean home still. He liked organized home. And I was just not able to keep up with it as much. Or probably not giving enough priority to it because when you're not feeling good about yourself, you're low on energy, right?
Yes.
I was thinking, oh, it's because of my all my health issues and all of this. I don't know if he doesn't seem to understand all of that. I know he loves me, but I don't know how much he cares about me. All these negative thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel embarrassed to share, but I want to share it. So now I had almost as I was focused on that um my garage, my other cabinets, my spaces are just not as organized. And I know he's going to really blow up about it. And it's almost like I was anticipating something like that,
Yeah.
right? Something to that effect. But now, like in December, um, I forgot exactly what happened, but something happened and he got upset. And he's not one that a lot of time raises his voice, especially with me, he's never done that. Like handful of times, if anything. If anything, in our 29 years of marriage, I have raised my voice more at him than he has raised his voice at me. But at this time, he was just like really upset. And that really hurt me because I felt it's an attack on me and it's an attack on all the things I felt incompetent about. It was all about that. And I looked at it from that point of view. Of course, now I know that there was a heart message that he was giving, but at the time I was very hurt.
Yeah.
And I took it to my friend and almost like gave my feeling its time. But because it was the week of gratitude, I was supposed to come up with gratitudes for him. But I knew one thing. It can't be like fake ones, right? I had to be
Mhm.
genuine about it.
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
really feel it because it has to be from my heart. So I started to really look into things to be grateful to him. And in the moment, and I can't remember now, but um I definitely needed space from him, just to process my feelings.
Sure. Sure.
So then when I was ready to like kind of talk, I remember now, one of the things I said, um, thank you for letting me have my space.
Mm.
That's how I showed him my gratitude. And he felt, I could tell he was just so soft around it. He said, of course, you're welcome. And he said, just let it go. Whatever happened, just let it go. Don't take it so hard on yourself. But I still wasn't fully ready. But then I started to see his heart messages. I started to see that he's just trying to communicate something which I have been kind of ignoring. You know, there's things I've been ignoring. So anyway, so that's why I say that gratitude week really saved me because without being in coach training at the time, without having to start experiencing the skills, I think if that episode had happened outside of this situation, that would have been pretty detrimental to our
Mm.
marriage. So I'm
Wow.
ever so grateful for that.
So
And
you showed up in a way that was um probably didn't seem possible in a way, right? The last thing you're thinking about is gratitude when you're feeling so hurt.
exactly,
So this is like a superpower that you showed up with that day and you got such a tender response.
I did.
This really created even though you weren't fully ready, it sounds like, right? You still needed your feelings needed their day in the sun some more, it sounds like. But
Yeah.
but it's still it connected the two of you and you got such a tender response. This is, I mean, this, it must have felt really wonderful to be able to show up that way.
It did. It really did. Um, and even when I had first just started the coach training, I had apologized to him. I'd apologized to him for some of the past, and I apologized to him that how I was controlling in so many areas which I didn't recognize that I was. And
Wow.
again, I could feel this sense of relief that it's almost like I was seeing what he probably wanted me to see. I don't know. And I don't want to talk on his behalf, but I could feel that sense of peace, and
Mm.
and but he would always say, no, we both made mistakes, and he would just kind of, accept, receive my apologies.
And he let you off the hook too, though. Yeah, he didn't want you to feel bad. It sounds like he just took that
Yeah, yeah,
apology with a generous spirit, it sounds like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that was really like the skills have truly, truly changed me because I really just felt like I found myself again. My, you know, someone that I had lost somewhere. And I was almost stuck between this um place of, how do I say this? So in my, because I kind of divide my marriage into three phases now. The first 25, 26 years, and the next 3 years, about 2.5, 3 years. And then moving forward, so far it's been a year, not even a year yet since I've been in coach, like 9 months, 10 months. So it's like that's how I've divided my life. And I feel like in the first 25 years or so, I just wanted to be that the wife did everything, and just pleasing everyone, helping everyone, taking on everything, and um and not complaining, right? But in the next, that 3 years or so, 2.5, whatever, I felt like that resentfulness came out of me. And I felt like I need to honor myself.
And,
I have
and
a
who
right
wouldn't be?
to.
Who wouldn't be resentful after all
Yeah.
those years of self-sacrifice and
Yeah. And I have a right over me. I need to take care of me. If I don't take care of me, who's going to take care of me? And all, some of those toxic views of feminism kind of creeped in me. So it's almost like I went from minimizing myself to victimizing myself, and like kept swinging in between minimizing and victimizing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what you gave me is that balance.
Mm,
The
mm.
balance of, yes, you can honor yourself and be respectful to others. You don't have to pick one or the other.
Yeah, it's not like okay, forget about you or to heck with you. I'm taking care of me. It's more like, yeah, I'm honoring myself. I'm doing the things that make me happy so I can show up being my best self too.
Yeah. So in
Yeah.
the next that 3 years, the reason I talk about it 2 to 3 years is because I was more externally disrespectful also.
Because the resentment had just built up
Yeah.
and there was just nowhere for it to go.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, I love your beautiful accountability, Juveriya, and I love your you're so on your paper, right? You're so focused on yourself and also this concept of respect, which was always important to you, but it sounds like that's gained new dimension for you too
Oh,
as
yes.
you've practiced the skills. So, what is your marriage like now?
We are at peace. We, I don't remember raising my voice in the last, I don't know, this whole 9 months. Um, I know how to manage my feelings. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you this because I had to write down, um, I had to write some of these down because what I learned really, one is what the true definition of respect is, right? And what I learned is I'm the only one responsible for my happiness, and I'm the only one who's in control of my happiness. And I know I'm sure you've heard this from multiples of people, but I really needed to share that when you asked, how is my marriage today? Is because I know how to take care of me. And I know that it's my responsibility. I kept looking at him to fulfill that. And he kept probably feeling like he's being a failure.
Ah, because you weren't happy.
I was not happy, and I would let him know that I'm not happy. And it just almost fat, sad and funny at the same time that I used to take him and say, have him sit down and just tell him basically what he's doing wrong in the past, right?
Yeah.
So after one of the coaching calls that I had during my coach training, I just felt so overwhelmed with guilt that I needed to apologize to him. But it was so like I was really overwhelmed. So, and I had to tell him, I said, I need to talk to you. But it's a good thing though, because I had to quickly tell him it's a good thing.
Because otherwise he might think it's one of those old
Oh, yeah,
conversations,
yeah,
those old State
exactly.
of the Unions.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
in one of our old conversations, he used to say, what did I do wrong now?
Oh, oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. Just like around here. Yep. So,
so now
um,
I'm sorry to answer your question. We really, I really, I have found, I have found my spark in my marriage again. And
oh,
it's better than ever before.
really?
It's because there's two individuals involved who are on their own paper and yet they're connected. I don't have to feel anxious inside me that, oh, if I do something, that am I displeasing him?
So that has faded, that this sense of like, you said it so beautifully and vulnerably, like maybe I'm not the one for him. Maybe there's somebody better for him. It doesn't
I'm
feel
the
that
one.
way. You're the one.
I'm
You're
the
the one. And what about this words of affirmation
one.
piece?
Oh, I realized he always gave it to me in
Oh,
his own ways, but I was so focused on how much he's not giving me.
yeah. Wow. So it feels
It's
like
the focus. My
it
focus.
was
And
just the focus. It was just the focus. Like your camera lens, it was blurry. And now you've focused on the part where what kinds of things does he say to you?
no, he he's always told me that no one will ever be more special to him than me, ever. And he just shows it through his eyes.
Oh, oh,
He finds in peace, like he finds peace being with me. He just want my comfort. He says at the end of the day, when we're finally in bed and we can snuggle, he always tells me this is the best part of my day.
oh, so sweet. It sounds wonderful. And I give you all the credit for getting this spark back, for single-handedly doing it. Now, in the beginning, you felt a little bit resentful that it had to be all you, right? Why should it be me, just me doing this? And what how do how what do you say to a woman who's feeling that way and she wants what you have, where it feels better than ever and the spark is back and she feels so special. What would you say to her? What's your
I would say that one way or the other, we're going to be working hard. So we just need to put the hard work in the right direction, in the right area.
Wow, you're so
And it's
wise.
rewarding. It's just more rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. So does it still feel unfair to you that you had to do it all?
No, no, it doesn't. And I know the skills now. Of course, I've long ways to go. I'm never going to be perfect, but I know the tools. I know the skills. I know that I have them to apply. And I think the best part was, Laura, is me figuring out that I have my own paper, and that's where all the power lies. I used to be in everybody else's paper, my children, my husband, and always worrying about everyone and trying to fix things. But, I really need to focus on my own self in a good way. That doesn't mean that I am not taking care of my responsibilities,
No.
but it's
No.
a shift in the heart, which is everything.
I love that. And I think some relief too, in a way that the
Oh, it's a
exhaustion,
huge relief.
it's
It's
huge
a,
relief. Yeah.
it's a huge relief.
Yeah. You know
Um,
what, Juveriya, I just love your beautiful humility too, because you had a good marriage, right? You had a good marriage. You did. And you still went to all this work. You went to great lengths to become more respectful, to become happier, to be more accountable, to be like on your paper, to just really get off of his paper and focus on yours. And it's really it's been a beautiful thing to watch your journey. And it's so exciting today to get to hear this story of how far you've come and just what an amazing job you've done. What do you think you would say to Juveria if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now?
um, I would tell myself, uh, be kind to yourself, you know. I would tell myself that you are a hardworking and a sincere person, so stop doubting you.
You are. You are.
Um, I would tell myself that you need to find a path to change yourself, not him, because I was so focused about wanting him to see certain things, wanting him to, see me for me, but I wasn't seeing myself. So it, yeah. And I will also remind myself my biggest truth, that there is goodness in everything. And this pain that I'm going through will become a source of hope for someone else,
Mm, it's
which
so
I
well.
always wanted. I always wanted that. I had this desire to make a difference in my community because I feel like I owe this to my Muslim community, my Indian community, because the way we look at things is very different, you know? And I want to be that hope for women who are older, who may think, oh, my marriage is fine. There's no problem. We're not going to get a divorce. But it's not only about getting a divorce, right? Um, it's about really finding the real way to respect, the real way to self-care, the real way to have vulnerability, and what we can do with all these tools.
Oh,
Um, and I just want to share one story with you, Laura, because which reflects a lot, is how I was talking about the thinking, right? I used to have these opinions about my husband. It was only because there was a reflection of um, me having insecurities about myself. So my husband drives a car which is a little bit lower to the ground. So anytime we go out as a family, we automatically go in his car. And When I sit on the passenger seat, as soon as I'm about to open the door, he would always remind me, hey, watch the door so it doesn't hit the ground because you don't know in the new areas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the past, I used to get really defensive inside me. It's like, of course I know I'm an adult. Why do you have to treat me like a child, and get annoyed around it? So maybe 2 weeks ago, we went to a new area, and again, he said the same thing. But I didn't get defensive in my heart because I'm at a different place. Instead, I said, oh, thank you so much for always looking out after me and
Oh.
making sure I do the right thing.
Oh, wow. And it felt sincere. This was
It
in your
was
heart.
sincere. It really was because I thought to myself, you know what? I'm a human. I can easily forget. And what if I just open the door and hit the ground?
Yeah.
I'm going to feel bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So all he's doing is looking out after me.
Wow. I love that. It's beautiful.
So just a mind shift.
Yeah. And how do you think it's impacted or has it impacted your three daughters that you've done all this?
I think it has impacted really well in a sense because I'm no longer coming in between their relationship, you know, and they're really proud of me. And we just celebrated our 29th anniversary in July. And that's when I decided to share some of the things with my daughters and
Wow.
told them that, hey, I have my spark back and I'm so happy. And they were kind of surprised. Oh, we didn't even know that you guys were going through things. We didn't know that you had, lost that. And I think it's really apparent. It's very apparent to them that something has shifted in me because they can see this peace on my face and just like genuine happiness,
I
which even
love it.
others are noticing it too, my friends,
Oh,
my cousins.
oh, you get feedback on what happened to you, Juveriya? Why are you so happy? Stuff like that.
Yeah. No, no, not just happy. They just feel, oh, you just look really good. You just look
Wow,
really good. And
you do. They're right. Yeah.
so
Well,
it's not the makeup, it's not the clothes, it's not anything.
no,
It's
no.
the inner happiness.
Yeah.
It's the contentment and the peace that I feel. And I can't thank you enough, Laura, and what you have created. And I had told my husband, I'm like, she's brilliant in writing that book, but she's even more brilliant in creating this platform, this connection framework, which I love. Like I love it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being on this journey with me, Juveriya. Uh, I, uh, I feel so inspired, and I want to congratulate you and give you my Best Wife Award. Congratulations.
Thank
You
you.
have transformed your marriage and your family and yourself and created more peace and love in the world and are such a shining beacon of hope. You've turned your pain into hope and inspiration for others. And I just couldn't be more impressed with what you've accomplished. It means so much to me to get to share this moment with you. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. It was, yeah, what a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, I'll reveal 2 ways to deal with a critical partner so that you don't feel nitpicked all the time. And in the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that people say, you made your bed, so now you have to lie in it. And I'm not feeling threatened by that at all. I feel like I'll go lie in it right now. Yay, nap time.